Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. There we go. Got to look at the camera, the little tiny bloody camera.
It's a small camera.
It's a small camera, and I also got to
It's-
figure out how to do this. It's going to be fun.
It's easy to forget to look at the small camera because we're used to looking at a very large camera.
And also, we haven't done this for like ages.
That's true. It has been a while.
In the first couple of months, we did many, and it's
Yeah.
been a while.
Now I was supposed to do the intro,
Go.
and you've derailed me already.
Well, that's how we do it.
Is it? It's not how we should do it.
That's how we derail everything.
Well, let's re-rail it.
Simon.
Mako/Mako.
Yeah, Mako. That'll do.
So, hello. Hello, dear audience. We are a band called Frights. My name is Simon. This is Mako. We have been trying to make music and failing miserably.
I don't know if that's true.
That's not true. It's for dramatic effect.
Okay.
We've been
I'm particularly affected by the drama that you've just instituted into the show.
Are you gripped?
I am gripped, and I need to enunciate with my mouth open.
Enunciate.
Enunciate?
That's new. Enunciate.
Enunciate. That's the one.
Anyway,
We're a band.
we make music.
We do make music.
We talk about making music. And we talk about having successful careers in the music industry, of which we are a part.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here,
Yep.
because we need to talk about it quite a lot, being that we're in this creative collaboration. And instead of us doing it off camera, we figured we'd do it on camera, keep ourselves accountable, keep the momentum high, and keep the process transparent, because process is something that's very important to me as someone who has had a background not in music, and it's something that we think is not spoken about enough, basically, or at least maybe not that it's not spoken about enough, but that when it is spoken about, it is layered in a lot of storytelling, which maybe is not useful.
Mysticism.
Mysticism is another good word too.
That's the word I was going to use. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a mythology, another good word to describe what we're talking about. There's a myth of artistry that I don't believe in. As someone who has been a
You want to try that again?
as someone who's been a practicing artist in the past,
Yes.
and arguably is one again now. The mysticism that and mythology that surrounds artistry is something that has been an ongoing frustration for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it holds us back more than it advances our cause as artists. I view art as an act of design, that you have an outcome that you're trying to achieve, that you have inputs and outputs, that you have a measurable idea of what success looks like. And if we can get those ducks in a row, it means that we can produce better art. However, that is not the prevailing way that we talk about art. We talk about art as the labor of geniuses, of people who have inspiration. And I want to dispel some of that. And part of that will also be making things, which is difficult. And here we are.
It is difficult. That was nice. That was a real extension of the conversation we were having off camera.
Which was the whole point, that we shouldn't be having these conversations off camera.
We've been having a lot of conversations off camera recently, haven't we?
Which is our fault, our bad. Apologies.
Why?
Because we've been busy little beavers, laboring away in obscurity.
What have you been up to in the last couple of weeks? I think we did our first kind of return to stream after our what we kind of call our phase 2 upgrade, maybe a month ago at this point, and we haven't found our way back since that time. And there's been a few things that's happened in that time, some big changes in our collective lives, and various other things that have meant that we haven't been able to come on and do the stream, and they are look, we talk about it like that, and it sounds like an excuse, and it is an excuse, and we shouldn't be making them. We should be just doing it, because that is part of this whole thing. Is the consistency is incredibly important when making when having a creative career like this, particularly in the modern age. If you aren't consistent, if people can't see you, you may as well not do it. And we have been breaking that rule for a while now, I would say, for whatever reason. And I don't we're self-deprecating sometimes, and we kind of are pretty hard on ourselves, and I feel like that certainly doesn't help, but we haven't been here, and that's no good. Yeah. So maybe you answer your the question I asked first. What have you been up to since we last spoke? We obviously know because we've been hanging out, but what have you been doing that advances our Frights journey?
Right. So, in the last stream, we spoke about audience building quite a lot, because that's largely what the next phase looks like for me.
Mm-hmm.
We now have a few things in the chamber ready to go. Before we start audience building in earnest, I would ideally like a few more of those things to be accessible to the audience that we're looking to build. But effectively, it looks like the stuff that I've been doing is transforming a lot of this stream content and a lot of the other assets that we've made into little packages, little delightful bundles,
mm-hmm.
of which we can put on the internet and direct people around through the funnel, as it were, into being followers, into being people who find the things that we make meaningful and willing to integrate that into their lives and build up meaning behind it. So that's the goal of most musicians, is to put out things that, in this case, things being songs, that people find meaningful, that augment their lives, that become part of their memories and part of their experience of what it is to be alive in 2024. The mechanisms by which that happens are a bit obscure at times, and I want to certainly, as evidenced by the start of, as I was saying at the start of this, is breaking down some of that. And I think I've got a clearish way of doing it, which has been part of what I've been figuring out over the last however many months we've been doing this. But it becomes clearer and clearer, and especially now putting these assets together in earnest now, it's becoming clearer still where these opportunities to stick with people and create interesting things for them exists. So I've just been kind of doing that, figuring it out, trying things, and now that we're on the cusp of starting to put those things out, I'm interested in finding ways that we can collect data on that and use that as a process for improvement. So that's going to be part of the next stage.
Do you think that part of that process of figuring out how to collect data should be kind of folded into releasing the things that we're collecting data on?
Well, of course.
But in a more like staggered way.
I think what you're asking is
not like building the whole system and then executing on the system, but just like starting to put stuff out and building the capture system around it.
Yes.
Data system around it.
And obviously it'll be platform specific as well. So a lot of this stuff that we're going to be putting out will be on platforms like Instagram, where we're not doing this part of the process. We're not talking about the meta kind of stuff. We're doing that on YouTube and Twitch and Kick.
Well, I mean, part of it is being able to live stream on those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Like part of building audience on those platforms is about like having enough audience on those platforms for the live streaming to
in the case of
viable.
something like a TikTok, yeah,
and Insta, because Insta's the same.
Yeah.
You need a certain audience size to engage with streaming.
Yeah, but until we get there, I think that we're not going to be talking about the data collection part of what we're doing, because that becomes kind of self-referential.
Yeah, you know.
I think the content that we'll be putting on there is going to be more focusing on the experience of being someone who makes things, and what the commercial realities of that look like. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's the same thing. We'll see.
We will see.
We'll try it and we'll find out.
Yeah. Well, that's good, and that and I've been watching your progress on the the making of the assets for these for this audience building, and I've been really stoked with the work that you've been doing over the last week. Because it's definitely been. I think we've talked about learning curves a lot and building proficiency a lot in the ongoing conversations we've had around Frights, but like. Almost every single time and this is kind of applicable to everything we do that's new, every single time we start going down a road that we haven't explored before, there's this real bumpy start to the road before we start getting the hang of things. And that's felt like what the last 8 weeks has effectively been, is just a combination of that and life stuff getting in the way has meant a nice bumpy bit of cobbled road in between our nice highway.
Yes, there's been a lot of banging our heads against a lot of walls, but we have made progress. I think we've both kind of had this lovely moment of breaking the back of the things that we're working on at the same sort of time, which has been a nice thing to share in the victory of, after watching one another be upset at the stuff we were doing for quite a while. So you with the musical parts and me with the marketing-y parts. And it feels like there's a little confluence there in being able to kind of overcome that together, and now getting ready to push those two things together is a nice place to be, even though the path, like you say, has been a bit kind of roughshod.
I'd agree with that. I think for me, my kind of focus has been the music component of what we're doing, for me, the hardest part is the consistency component of music. I have a lot of, and I've spoken about this before, I have a lot of trauma wrapped up in my musical education that does get in the way sometimes of me actually sitting down and doing it, but certainly the last 8 weeks has been a real turning point for me in those particular areas. It didn't stop me from doing music before. I've written a lot of music over my time in the industry. But it is a consistent wall that I have to climb every time I exit the garden that is my musical practice, the walled garden that is my musical practice. And so before, probably roughly around the last time we did our previous stream, I was really setting up a nice scenario in that walled garden to be able to consistently do stuff, and then the world got in the way, as we've made excuses for several times already this stream, and prevented me, or became this project became a low priority at that point, which is not great, because this is the thing that I want to hang the rest of my career on, effectively. The foreseeable future of my career, this is the thing that I want to be doing, or whatever this evolves into, not anything else. And so the deprioritization of my engagement with this has been something that's really been a sore point for me, particularly the music component, because I think for me, I find it very easy to engage in some of the other discussions we have around culture and applying culture and driving culture and building culture and all these ideas around culture. And I also really like to practice what we're preaching. Not practice what we're preaching, but practice preaching. That's what I'm trying to say. Practice speaking about the ideas that we are trying to engage in and trying to develop in music, in particular, with the various people that I'm working with in my broader career, professional practice, outside of Frights. And that's been a real... Every single time I talk about it with someone I've chosen to speak about with, there's a real excitement, there's a real interest, there's always a lot of questions that come out of that, there's always a lot of head tilting in well, this is an interesting kind of thing going on here. What does this all mean? Every single time has been a really nice engagement, and every single time has kind of had really positive reactions, not just in the moment of the discussion, but also the following day in text messages or later down the track in messages and additional conversations. So I've been really enjoying that part. And as we speak, I'm kind of working my way back into the walled garden that is my musical practice, to engage again with the proficiencies that I feel like need work in the work that I'm doing there. So that's been kind of what I've been doing. Extending on that a little bit more, I've also been going through there's been a bit of ideation, let's put it that way, because I don't think we're ready to announce necessarily what we're doing musically just yet, because I think we're still developing it, and I don't necessarily think that this stream is the right stream to start digging into that. But I think we will very soon, with keeping in mind that the whole point of what we're doing is demonstrating what happens behind the scenes. But I've been working on going through the material that we have, consolidating it, because a lot of different people have worked on this across the last 2 years. Consolidating the files, centralizing the files, organizing the sessions, finding stuff that's missing, deciding if the stuff missing is even worth digging for. All that kind of stuff is what I've been engaging with, and it's been a real good week or so for that. I have all the files that I need now, and now I'm digging through sessions, as I was earlier today, digging through sessions to unwrap what was done, decide what we need, capture, like rebounce things that we want to kind of listen to consolidate our thinking around the next stage of Frights, or the next thing that we're working on, and take it from there, basically. Which, will involve effectively playing with our ideas around frameworking and process, because that's and shortening what we're doing down to a lot smaller timelines, because the initial idea of working on individual songs a song every 8 weeks or a song every 6 weeks, is even too big for us in our current stage of development, and we need to shrink that process down and hit our head against it a few times just to unwrap it and break it down into understandable pieces that we can internalize and capture in process, because part of what we're doing is about capturing things in process, and applying that to broader cultural ideas, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of looking at it. What has come out of, I don't want to be too down on ourselves about having this period of this little fallow season that we've found ourselves in, because a lot of good's come out of it as well.
Yeah.
Like you've said, there's this. We took this moment, this little blip, as an opportunity to reflect, reorganize, strategize, and in terms of it's very easy to look at this as a bit of a mistake. We let ourselves lose momentum. We let ourselves get into like a bit of a bind of having to go up that hill again, which we'd worked very hard to get to a point where we'd found ourselves being comfortable and proficient in this environment, and now it's less comfortable. There's no two ways about it. I think we both are noticing ourselves talking less fluidly, where there's a sense of tension and just stiffness to what we're doing that we had managed to eliminate. But ultimately we're not going to be able to keep all the balls in the air all the time. So to experience what that feels like, to come out the other side and find ourselves pushing against it to do better, and to have used that time to still be effective in other ways, I think we need to pat ourselves on the back a bit in relation to that as well, because it would have been very easy to just go, oh well, we've found ourselves in a slump because of increased work commitments, other life stuff, having to do an unexpected bathroom renovation, any number of things that have happened that we can point to, and go, well, actually, you know what, it's too much. Let's mothball it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm glad that we haven't done that. I think we've invested enough. I think we're at the point where we've invested enough. Forget about what we've invested in equipment, which isn't actually that much in the grand scheme of things compared to the investment in equipment I've made on projects in the past.
Yeah.
But the investment of time has given us the classic sunk cost fallacy, I think, to a degree, or at least for me. I feel like I have to keep working on this now, which I find to be quite motivating because I do want to do this. I wouldn't have started doing this if it wasn't for the fact that I didn't want to do it. But having that fallacy kind of finding its way into the practice around this project is not a bad thing. I know that it exists. I can turn it off. But for me anyway, maybe not for you, but for me, it's definitely there. And it makes me want to keep coming back in addition to the reasons that I want to keep coming back, because I feel like I have to return the investment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I hadn't considered it from the point of view of a sunk cost fallacy. I think for me,
it's not sunk cost in a bad way. It's sunk cost in this has got some weight to it kind of way. The bag has got stuff in it.
Sure, I think that's a better, that tees up more with what my view is. I think with my view, it's been, okay, so taking a little bit of a break from it has reaffirmed that, the time I had to spend not being involved in it, not doing it, has made me want to get back in. I've felt the hunger for it, which has been a really validating and good thing to feel, I think. It's been a overall a positive thing to feel. A little absence makes the heart grow fonder sort of situation.
Yeah, I can get behind that. And I've certainly missed it. Yeah. I've certainly missed it when I haven't been here. Like last week was a real demonstration of that because we were here for a couple of days, and even though we weren't working every day on that, because we're shutting down one of our spaces at the moment, which has been another life thing to get in the way, though we thought it was probably coming, so it wasn't entirely unexpected like the bathroom was. That makes us sound like we live together. My bathroom is stuffed. His bathroom is fine. Spending those extra days on it last week and being in the environment where we make the things that we're trying to release has been really, really great for helping return to that momentum. We almost did this stream last Friday, or Thursday, which was our initial day, but we made the deliberate decision to not do that in favour of getting ahead on another job that we had to do, breaking down the space, the other space that we've been in the past. So that's been really good. So that return for me has been great. I've really enjoyed that. And returning to the music in the last week has been really good too. And I hope to get some more of that done over the coming weeks. Particularly now that we have a bit more of we've got a bit more of an idea of what we want to do with the material that we have sitting there, even though it's not fully fleshed out. Yeah, that's what I've got. Do you want to talk about anything else?
Well, let me have a look at our little mini list that we've got here. So
you've already spoken about data and audience building.
Well, I mean, have I really spoken about data?
Kind of. You've talked about how you're interested in capturing it.
Yeah.
Do you want to dig into that a little bit more? What is it about data that you want to talk about, Simon?
Well, Josh, let me tell you. So, obviously, there is a lot of data that's available to you if you're someone who's going down a bit of a digital marketing pipeline, whether that involves social media or not. In our case, it involves mostly social media. And so we'll have mountains of data that's available to us as soon as we start pushing stuff out. I'm interested in coming up with a way of collating and collecting that data that is useful to us and not just numbers that become this frustrating thing for us to either hang our hat on or be dismayed by. Because I think there's there's pain in both. Many a person building a career that hinges on social media has come unstuck by having great numbers, and then loathing what they have to do to get them, or that their whole existence becomes ruled by those numbers. Now, that's not something we need to figure out right now. Let's focus on getting the great numbers before we start overdoing it with mitigating the problems that come along with it. But I am interested in knowing what to pay attention to and what to disregard. And at this stage, I don't know what that is. And I think we're probably not going to know until we start collecting it a bit. But I would like for part of this stream going forward to be a bit of an investigation about what that is and what we've been collecting, what we've been looking at. So that's going to be an interesting little something to figure out in the near future. I think there's probably room for some of that to be like an opportunity for audience engagement as well. There'll be things that people are interested in knowing, and I think that it's going to be in our best interest to be quite transparent about that, about what's worked, what hasn't, what we're planning on trying next. And again, like, I don't want that to become the be all and end all of what we talk about, because I think that will be a bit of a failure if that is what it becomes. But I think it is also going to be very important as it continues to shape what that audience acquisition funnel looks like, not to get too marketing-y, but that is ultimately what we're talking about, and it's what every artist has to go through, is having this big funnel at the top where you get your work in front of a lot of people and pull them down into becoming paying customers as they go down that funnel. Whether or not people want to acknowledge it, that's what every entertainer, every artist, every person who makes things is doing. And so I think that we should be quite transparent about that and talk about it at length over the course of many streams. And it all starts with data, because ultimately we fall into that what gets measured gets managed kind of paradigm. So we're going to have to measure pretty closely so that we can continue to manage it. And that's where the data's like the linchpin of that, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think one of the kind of pitfalls, I mean, one of what we're trying to do is give people tools to help them build their careers and navigate this ever-changing, quickly changing world. That's one of our goals. So seeing how to collect data, seeing what data is important, even believing that data is important in the first place, becomes a big, a big conversation to be had around this kind of stuff. And we all know that data is important. Otherwise, we wouldn't have, record companies and all these big companies that centralize that data for various reasons. So you look at the big companies in the game at the moment, which, make it very difficult for anyone else to engage, really, because they make it almost unfeasible to operate as an individual in the industry. And that's the Live Nations, the Ticketmasters, the Ticket Techs, the Spotifys of the world, which are basically, they're the 3/4 that own the industry at the moment. And it's not that we don't want to necessarily engage with that, but with that part of the industry, but it is very it's a very high bar to reach to start engaging at that level. I mean, almost every artist who is in that system has what we would understand as a sustainable career, very broadly anyway. I'm sure that they drop people every day who don't meet those requirements because they're capitalist companies, that function in the highest level of capitalism that there is in the world. And if their products, I guess, aren't performing, then they will pull them off the shelves.
Yeah. Did you? It's funny you should say that.
Yeah.
Exactly like that. Did you watch the episode of Four Corners that came out last week?
I didn't watch it, but I heard about it.
Mm.
Yeah. We're in Australia, if you didn't figure that out. Four Corners is an ABC program made by our national broadcaster.
Yep. It's a investigative journalism sort of thing.
Yep.
But I've just pulled up. It's on my list of like things to watch. But I've just pulled up the blurb here, right? Multinational Live Nation is dominating Australia's live music industry. It's squeezing out local competition by acquiring smaller independent operators. Over 1,300 venues have shut down and major festivals have been bought out, cancelled and closed. Now, a Four Corners investigation reveals how the corporation and its ticketing arm, Ticketmaster, are maximising profits at the expense of both consumers and artists. So that it's quite a landscape to be involved in, because like that's happening on that level. But this consolidation of audience into a few big areas is, no matter what sphere you're looking at, whether even artists, you know, the fact that you have these artists like your Ed Sheerans and Taylor Swifts that so much like saturate so much of the audience through things like radio play and being pushed on platforms like Spotify and also by social media outlets. You just have this constant flux of these few artists being at every touch point that you have with the world, being saturated.
And consuming everyone's entertainment budgets as well. You know?
Well, that's right.
You know, I have a lot of things to say about that, because I've only worked in the music industry. No, that's not true. Half of my work that I do is that I've done in the past has been in the music industry. So I'm quite intimate with the effect that Live Nation has had on the industry over the last 10 years. I've seen it happen from Live Nation coming into Australia, starting to buy out festivals, starting to invest in the future of music in Australia. And that's not what's been happening at all. I would the way that I've seen it, particularly in the last couple of years, it's been the elimination of competition for their top tier products. Taylor Swift's, I don't know if Taylor Swift is on those cards, but whoever's touring with Live Nation these days, those people. And I pretty much consider the visiting of Taylor Swift to Australia at the beginning of the year, was it the beginning of the year or end of last year? End of last year, to have just basically taken the industry out by the knees, because, you know, she sold 450,000 tickets in this country. Our country is only 25 to 27 million people. The reported demand for her tickets was 4.5 million people wanted to go see her.
That's absurd.
And she sold out of merchandise during the first show, which meant that they had to expedite additional merchandise in to capture the market that they'd missed, that they underestimated. All that sounds incredible for her and good on her, but at the same time, you got to think about where that money came from to allow that to happen. And it came from consumers' pockets, people who would usually spread their consumption out across a broader cross-section of the music-making market, suddenly are only spending it in one place. And that's just on a Taylor Swift level. Like, Live Nation is bigger, much bigger than Taylor Swift is. They own, I know they have shares in all the production companies in Australia, if not fully outright own them, which they didn't before. These were operators that they bought out around COVID or started investing in the lead up to COVID. And COVID was a pretty great time for them, because they're a big company that has the ability to, like in the way that Amazon does, they have the ability to kind of sit on assets that are losing them ridiculous amounts of money for a long time, enough time for them to remove the competition through just purely, attrition. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. And that's what's been really happening here. They also have shares or outright own several of the main music venues in all the major capital cities. So any local artist touring ends up being whacked with ridiculously large fees for using the spaces, big fees for selling merchandise in those spaces. So not only do you get done for ticket sales as an artist, you get done for merchandising. So any merchandise you sell on the premises, Live Nation gets a cut of that in the as the contracts stand most of the time at the moment, from my understanding. And then you mentioned the festivals. We've had a lot of festivals disappear in Australia over the last year or two. Several of our biggest ones, including Splendour in the Grass, Falls Festival, which happen at opposing 6 months of the year. One happens in the middle of the year, one happens around Christmas, New Year's. They're touring festivals. Oh no, they're not. Splendour is not a touring festival. Splendour is a big kind of Coachella kind of style festival. What's the one in the UK?
Glastonbury.
Yeah, that kind of style festival, but adjusted for our population size. It still has a cap of like 50,000 people or something, or when it was operating. And we also had, and those festivals were significant. They had significant ownership from Live Nation through various subsidiary companies. And it was shut. Well, Splendour was cancelled last year due to poor ticket sales, but probably would have gone ahead had it been owned by the original owners outright. So there's a lot of this squeezing happening, particularly in our economy, where there's no one else who has the money to compete with a monster like that, And I speak about this in a. Companies are going to do what companies are going to do. If anyone expected that a big company like that wasn't going to engage in this anti-competitive kind of style behaviour, they're crazy. It's up to, that's the, getting incredibly political here, but it's the role of governments to legislate that stuff and take companies to task when they are breaking the rules and engaging in any competitive behaviour, and it just hasn't happened until the industry was literally, like we've suffered as a result of the downturn that's happened because of some of the interactions from these big companies. Now, it's not, these things are perfect storms of circumstances as far as I'm concerned. No single situation is to blame. No single company is to blame. I don't even think, there's a certain amount of not so much blame, but responsibility that lies with the people engaging with it, the audiences and the artists. But that's just the way that capitalism works. It attracts people to a certain way of understanding and operating in the world that means that you end up with these kind of collections of similar understandings of the way that things work, and then sometimes this happens where it falls flat on its face. And that's how I understand it. Like, if they were my companies, this is what capitalism encourages. So I can't say that I wouldn't do the same thing. Eliminating competition and improving your ability to earn is that's what business is.
And that kind of vertical integration that we're seeing of owning ticketing companies,
production companies,
venues, etc. Is
artists.
It's artists. Yeah,
they own the artists too.
It's a classic. Like it's nothing new.
No, everyone's done it. Microsoft did it. Like that's why they got in trouble years and years and years ago. Like everyone's done it. It's what capitalism encourages.
And it happens on all levels as well. Like bakeries owning a farm so that they can grow their own wheat and things is a tale as old as time as well.
Yeah,
like it's not some new thing that's been facilitated by technology or globalization or anything.
But Macca's isn't doing farm to table.
But
they might own their own beef production, for instance.
Yeah, they will have producers that produce only for them.
But the difference between a McDonald's and music is the market size. Production of food is every single person on the face of the planet is the audience.
But every person on the face of the planet also engages in cultural practice, of which music is part of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think that there's, it's a different market. It's not a market that people will as readily dip into their pockets on. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's very different. You don't need music to survive. You do need food.
That's true.
Is it?
I'd argue against that actually, because you know my opinion on this, but I may as well share it with everyone. The one of the things that I see as being a challenge with music as a practice is that music inherently is an intangible art form. That's where it starts, because it's an intangible art form that isn't one of our primary senses. It attracts a certain kind of practitioner, someone who is a bit airy-fairy potentially. Not necessarily, but this is a general thing that I'm seeing. And that kind of intangibility of the practice transmits to the audience, I think, as well. Like an audience no longer easily can own music in their hand as they used to. A record like we have up on the wall here was the old way of distribution: CDs, tapes, cassettes, etc. And in the new world, it's all on someone else's computer, as they say, in the cloud. That's the joke, isn't it? If it's in the cloud, it's on someone else on someone else's computer, and you don't actually own it; you just access it. And the problem with not being able to touch it, not being able to engage with it in the way that you used to, is it becomes for the way that humans function, at least in the way that I feel about it, is that they value it less because it doesn't have any weight to it, quite literally. But if we turned music off today, you watch the world go mad tomorrow. I do think that people need music in their lives, and like you look back at all the the developing, you look at some of the tribes that people don't interact with and they just observe from a distance. They all have music or practices in their tribes.
Yeah, music is incredibly important for those reasons. We all learn language skills through music, through singing the alphabet song. We all music is used as lullaby in every culture that I'm aware of.
Storytelling?
Yeah, that's right. Keeping oral traditions alive, mnemonics.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff is crazy important. And music is fundamental.
And if you've watched the new Lord of the Rings series, there's a whole.
I haven't.
There's a part of it. This won't give anything away. There's a song in it that the hobbits, for want of, because they called something else, the Half-Foots or whatever they're called in the new series. The hobbits sing. That was just one of their songs that they would sing when they moved, when they were nomadically moving around the place. And there's a realization that it's telling a story of how they got to where they were about halfway through, which I don't think that's not a spoiler. If you're worried about that, spoiler alert. Sorry about that. But but that's like a perfect example of what you're talking about. It's this capturing of history of a people, and that's what folk music's about. The traditional folk songs that have been plundered by every musician ever, from Chopin to Gautier. They've all plundered folk music on some level. And because of its nature of holding that narrative,
So are you saying, sorry, I'm coming back to this intangible thing.
Go on.
Because I don't know that I, A, have wrapped my head around it, and B, agree.
Yeah, you don't have to. Either of those things.
Okay. But so that I can wrap my head around it a little
Sure.
bit and disagree with you more robustly, are you saying that on the whole you think musicians are more up in the clouds than visual artists?
Maybe. My experience of the people that I've worked with is that musicians seem to have less of a grasp on things than maybe visual artists do. But that's not in saying that I'm completely true. Maybe art just attracts those kinds of people.
I think look, there's obviously going to be examples.
I'm a dreamer.
For
I
and
can't.
against.
I can't.
And everyone's an individual. Everyone's an individual.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can point to any art form and find practitioners at the highest level who are just absolutely off with the fairies. Look at like cookery, or chefing, which is the art of taste,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you've got your Matty Mathesons. You've got people who are just off the wall.
What a guy.
What the best guy.
I love Matt.
But just on another planet. I don't know of any.
I think Matty lives on this planet. That he's a real like representation of the insanity of humanity. That dude.
Sure.
That's a nice little turn of phrase, that one.
Insanity of humanity.
Yeah.
You should consider a rap career. You're in the wrong game. Got to be spitting bars.
Oh no, what have we done?
What have we done?
It's gone off it's gone off
Oh
chops.
no!
That's
The wide shot's gone way wide.
It's all right. We'll fix that. You carry on.
It's
Oh,
gone
look, it's fixed itself.
wee.
It decided to go on a journey. Anyway,
It heard a song from a hobbit
And it was just-
halfling.
off into the wilderness. It probably saw you put your hand up, and I haven't turned off gestures on
Oh
it.
no!
Oh no.
Oh no!
Anyway,
I know.
this is a conversation we can continue another time.
Well, there we
'cause
go.
It goes deeply into what we're talking about.
Well, it was nice to get a little ways into it.
Yeah, I think so. We'll come back to it, but we need to limit our time because we have things to do and all that jazz
We do, and it's now been 50 minutes, so I think that's quite enough of that.
for this one.
Let's get back to other things. Back to our regularly scheduled programming, as it were.
Yeah, and what the intention is that we're going to try and come back on what day have we got set aside next week? Thursday next week for our next update, because we have a whole bunch of jobs in between that. You're doing stuff, I'm doing stuff, but we're also got a lot of time set aside to making the material we need to take this next step towards.
With that in mind,
Yes.
when are these next 2 tracks coming out?
Well, they're there, they're ready. I just need to put them up.
Can you hit the button, please?
Well, I will. They've been on my list.
Do it.
I've been organising files.
That's more important, is it? That's the priority, to organize files.
That's just been the amount of time that I've had to be able to spend on this. And you only gave me the artwork from like last week, so.
Yeah, that's a week ago.
I know.
They could have been up
Well,
by
it wasn't like it was
now. They could
Wednesday
have been.
last week.
They could have been up by now.
It's not been a week yet. They could be up, and they will go up. But
It's good artwork.
it is.
It's
They're cool songs.
It's mediocre artwork.
What are the 2 songs? We got the piano version of Only Yesterday.
It's the same song that's already out,
Yeah,
but
we've
it's
done
2
some
different.
versions.
It's 2 different versions of it.
And the remix.
The funsies.
Yeah, the remix.
Yeah,
And then I need to chase Mr. Gentleman Leader.
you do.
Yeah, that's okay.
Pull his mask off.
Yeah.
And pull his finger out.
And I think, yep, we'll have some more to say about what's coming out musically over the next couple of weeks as the proficiency and momentum builds again.
Yes, we have. I like where we're headed.
Me too.
We've got some cool little irons in the fire. They're still little baby irons in the fire, but
That's the
they're
point.
getting bigger and stronger every day. We're feeding them their little
Coal.
Yeah.
Yep.
But little baby coal.
Yeah.
Digestible for little baby fires.
Yeah. Like the little soup bowls from Spirited Away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Calcifer.
Yeah. No, that's
Happy little boy. Oh no, that's Howl's Moving Castle.
He eats eggs and and whatever you throw in there because he's a fire.
Because it's a fire.
All right, that's enough. We're enough. We've got to move on. I'm Mako. This is Simon. We're in a band called Frights. We're going to continue to mumbo jumbo talk about this nonsense. It's not nonsense. This stuff that we're doing around music and culture as we move forward in the project that is Frights plus, all the academic stuff that we're doing around it.
So if you'd like to follow along,
Yep.
Press
Jump
the
on
buttons.
the socials. Yep. We've got a website.
press all the buttons.
Frights.band. Check it out. It has all the socials on there, and you can follow us to keep up to date.
Actually, I need to update that.
You do. Well,
Yeah.
you're working on it. You were working on it earlier today.
Well, sure.
All right.
Stay tuned.
Evening, Squires.